In the far northern region of Canada, there was a small village called Frostwood. The village was surrounded by dense forests and snow-covered mountains. Among the villagers, an old legend had been passed down for generations. They said that on the longest winter night of every year, an old train would emerge from the snowy wilderness and travel through the frozen forests. People called it the Ghost Train of the North. According to the legend, the train had disappeared 100 years ago during a terrible blizzard. No one had ever seen it again. Yet on one special winter night each year, its haunting whistle could still be heard, echoing through the distant woods. 14-year-old Ethan always laughed whenever he heard the story. "A ghost train? That's just an old fairy tale," he would tell his friends Lucas and Maya. But this year was going to be different. One snowy evening while the wind howled outside, Ethan was exploring his grandfather's attic, searching through old boxes and forgotten belongings. Suddenly, he discovered a dusty old diary. On the first page, written in faded ink, were the words, "If you are reading this diary, then perhaps the ghost train has returned." Ethan's eyes widened. The diary had belonged to his great-grandfather. Inside was a hand-drawn map with a location marked in red ink. Beneath it were the words, "The old station buried beneath the snow." The next morning, Ethan, Maya, and Lucas grabbed the map and headed into the forest. Snow continued to fall as they made their way through the wilderness. After hours of hiking, they finally arrived at an abandoned train station. Its roof was partially collapsed. The railway tracks were buried beneath thick snow. The entire place was silent. Then, suddenly, a train whistle echoed through the air. Whoa! The three friends froze. The sound was real. Moments later, the ground began to tremble beneath their feet. Out of the swirling snow and fog, an old black locomotive slowly appeared. Warm yellow lights glowed from its windows. But strangely, no one could be seen inside. The train rolled into the station and came to a stop. Its door slowly creaked open by itself. No conductor, no passengers, no sound, only silence. Maya stepped back nervously. "I don't think we should go inside," she whispered. But Ethan moved forward. He felt certain that this was the mystery his great-grandfather had written about. Together, the three friends stepped aboard. The moment they entered, the door slammed shut behind them. The train began to move. As they looked out the windows, they couldn't believe their eyes. The snowy forest had vanished. Instead, they saw an old Canadian town from another era. Wooden buildings lined the streets. Horse-drawn wagons rolled through the snow. People dressed in clothes from a century ago walked along the roads. It was as if they had traveled 100 years back in time. Suddenly, an elderly conductor appeared before them. His face was pale and ghostly. He looked at them and asked, "Why have you come here?" Ethan showed him the diary. The conductor stared at it. Tears filled his eyes. "I knew your great-grandfather," he said quietly. The conductor explained that 100 years earlier, the train had become trapped during a devastating blizzard. Hundreds of passengers had been on board. They tried desperately to call for help, but no rescue ever came. The train and everyone on it vanished into the storm. Since that day, the train had been trapped between time and reality. Once every year, on the longest winter night, it returned to the world for a brief moment. "Is there anything we can do?" Maya asked. The conductor reached into his coat and pulled out an old golden pocket watch. "This watch can finally set the train free," he said. "But it must be returned to the place where the train first disappeared." Suddenly, the train began to shake violently. The blizzard had returned. Windows cracked. Freezing wind rushed into the cars. Time was running out. Ethan grabbed the golden watch and sprinted toward the front of the train. Lucas and Maya followed close behind. The storm grew stronger with every step. The walls of the train rattled and groaned. Finally, they reached the engine room. There, standing before them, was a glowing door made entirely of ice. Without hesitation, Ethan threw the pocket watch through the doorway. A brilliant flash of light exploded around them. Everything turned white. When the three friends opened their eyes again, they were standing back at the abandoned station. The train was gone. The storm had vanished. The sky was clear. Then, carried on the wind, they heard hundreds of voices whispering together, "Thank you." Moments later, silence returned. Ethan looked down. Lying in the snow was an old photograph. It showed the conductor smiling warmly. Written on the back were the words, "At last, we're going home." From that day forward, no one ever heard the whistle of the ghost train again. Most people